Hello friends and welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm really glad you're here. If you're new here, my name is Becca and this channel is all about my love for spinning, knitting, weaving, crocheting, sewing, all the fiber things. If you're enjoying this fiber adventure, please consider leaving a like or a comment or subscribing to my channel. I invite you to grab whatever project you have on the go and join me. Let's make some stuff. Today I want to share with you one of my antique spinning wheels and a project that I have in the works. But first I wanted to share with you some of my works in progress and give you some updates on how things are going. So the first project that I have to share with you is progress on my one ring scarf. This is a double knitting project that we're doing as a winter knit along for a double knitting project. So you can either knit the one ring scarf as I'm doing or any double knitting project of your choice. Tag me on Instagram and Ravelry or drop a comment below this video and let me know what you're working on. As you can see, I've made it through the first part of the scarf with the Door of Durin and the Tree of Gondor on either side and have started on the script. This is going to take a while and it will definitely be a journey. So please come along with me and share your own double knitting projects in our winter knit along. I'm also rounding out the year with one last pair of socks. I'm knitting a pattern from this book which is called Knitted Socks East and West. 30 designs inspired by Japanese stitch patterns. The book is by Judy Sumner and it's photographed by Yoko Inoue. And I'm making a pattern called Samurai, which has a plain foot, and then on the cuff it has this sort of woven and twisted cabled pattern, which is supposed to be reminiscent of samurai in their armor. But I'm making this pair of socks in some yarn from Knit Picks. This is Knit Picks Stroll Tweed, so it's got these little tweedy bits in it. And the color is called Barn Door Heather. And as you can see, I've gotten started 2 at a time, as is my usual technique. Toe up, and I'll do the foot and the heel, and then I'll make the cuff with the pattern that's in the book. So one last pair of socks. This will be sock pair number 7 this year, which I just cannot believe how many I've made. And that's if I get it done this week. If I don't, it'll be the first pair of 2023. So this is the first year that I decided to set out to do the Make 9. And if you have not heard of that, this is a maker's planning tool where you set out at the beginning of the year the 9 projects that you're going to work on for that year. And of course, I was overly ambitious, as I often am, and decided not to make 9 different items, but essentially 9 different kinds of items. So I had, 9 pairs of socks that I was going to make on my list. And because I was overly ambitious, I didn't get through all of them, but that's all right. I was amazed at how much I was actually able to get accomplished this year. I've never really kept track before, and so having that plan, having it written down, writing down when I make things and what I make, and then also just starting this YouTube channel and being able to share all of these things with you has really inspired me to keep up on my making and keep track of my making. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you. Thank you. The wheel I'd like to share with you today is a Ukrainian Castle wheel that was made in the mid-1940s by a master maker in Ukraine. And I found this several years ago on Etsy shop, ElenShudra. And Elena of ElenShudra had completely restored this beautiful wheel. And she had several of them from the same maker in her shop. So if you go on to her Etsy shop, you'll see that it's still listed. and she did a fantastic job restoring it. The pictures were absolutely beautiful. It's hard to say if she would be able to ship right now, given the current state of events in Ukraine. So several years ago, I found this wheel, and I was hesitant to have the wheel shipped all the way from Kyiv to Kansas, where I am, because I knew it was a long and arduous journey that this wheel would have to take. And I was afraid that it was going to get broken and damaged in shipment, which would have been a real shame given how beautiful the pictures were, and everything appeared to be intact and functioning. And but I took the risk in large part because Elena was just so responsive to all of my questions and willing to answer everything that I asked, and just a complete pleasure to work with. And so I made the purchase, and I waited the several months for this package to arrive. It was quite a long wait to get the package, but when it arrived, it was lovingly packaged, and the fragile pieces were all so well packaged that there was absolutely no damage. And she spun beautifully almost right away. Every antique wheel takes a little bit of figuring it out and getting it. So I really wanted to buy this wheel in particular because I had a castle style wheel, my Ashford Kiwi 2, that was a modern wheel that I love. I love the wheel. I love the compact size. I love the very front facing direct action of a castle style wheel, and I'd seen a bunch of pictures of antique castle style wheels, but I had never seen one in person. And I had a couple of antique wheels at this point already, and both of those were Saxony style wheels. And Saxony style wheels is just where the wheel itself is off to the right as you're spinning. The orifice where you're feeding the yarn through is in front of you or to the left. So I was really intrigued by an antique castle style wheel, and so I bought this wheel, and it's just such a great addition to my collection. I love spinning with it. And in the box with the pieces of the spinning wheel, Elena had put in a couple of just adorable Ukrainian trinkets that just made my day and were so wonderful. So thank you so much, Elena. I hope you are well. And that brings me to the project and the yarn that I'm spinning on this fabulous wheel. This is a Shetland Wool dyed midnight blue that I purchased from the Woolery. And I just love this color. It's so deep and rich and just gorgeous. So, unlike most of the yarn that I spin, I actually had a project in mind for this going into it. So I purchased 150 grams of this wool, which is all I was able to get in this color. I hope that it is enough for the sweater that I intend to make. The yarn that I'm making is a 3-ply worsted or heavy worsted or Aran weight, which is heavier than I usually spin. If you've seen any of my videos previously, I've talked about how I typically spin a 2-ply heavy sport weight yarn. Is sort of my typical, and I don't usually have a plan for my spinning, so I end up with a lot of yarn that's basically the same weight that I can mix and match. Well, this I really wanted to make a very specific sweater project out of, and that project called for a worsted or Aran weight 8 wraps per inch yarn. So I'm making this 3-ply, and I love the way the yarn is turning out. I haven't set the twist yet, so it will bloom a little bit and won't be quite as tightly spun. But I needed to make this heavy yarn because the sweater that I want to make is from this book called Viking Patterns for Knitting by Elspeth Levold. I've made several patterns in this book, and maybe one day I'll pull them all out together so that you can see them. But the sweater that I want to make is called Ragna. And I have loved this pattern, wanted to make this pattern ever since I got this book. It is a cabled Aran weight sweater that is sort of medieval inspired, and it has at the bottom these separate panels that sort of look like medieval style dags that I just think are really cool. And I loved it in this blue indigo color, and so that's what I wanted to make, was yarn that would accentuate that cable pattern. So this is my plan. I don't know if 150 grams is going to be enough, given that I'm doing it in 3-ply instead of 2-ply. If I had done it in my standard 2-ply, that would definitely be enough for a sweater. But with a 3-ply, I'm just not sure. So I'll have to get through the spinning and then see how much I have in terms of yardage to see if that's going to be enough for this pattern, or if this yarn will become something else. So it's interesting that I have a plan at the spinning phase, because that's typically not what I do. Before we get spinning, I want to tell you a little bit about the sweater that I'm wearing. This is also Shetland wool in a natural fawn color that I also purchased from the woolery, and that I spun on this Ukrainian wheel. And this is my standard spin in sort of a 2-ply, and it came out fairly fine. This is actually, because it's Shetland, I think, turned out a little finer than what some of them do. But I love this sort of oatmeal-y fawn color of this Shetland wool. And the sweater then is a basic pieced sweater, front and back, 2 sleeves. And I added this all over textured stitch pattern to sort of accentuate the rustic feel of the yarn. And the stitch pattern that I used is called moss stitch. And if you're familiar with it, it's similar to seed stitch, where it's just a combination of knit, purl, and then on another row you knit the purl stitches from the previous row and purl the knit stitches, so you're swapping back and forth. Seed stitch switches on every row, and moss stitch switches every 2 rows. So you end up with this sort of woven texture. And I thought that was really nice in this particular wool. And then the cuff, the hem, the sleeve cuffs, and the neckline are also a textured pattern with purl stitches and knit stitches. In this case, there's an X in purl stitches raised off of a knit stockinette background. But enough chit chat, let's get to spinning. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for spending some of your creative time with me. I hope you'll join our winter knit along, either with the one ring scarf or another double knitting pattern of your choice. Tag us on Instagram and Ravelry and comment here to share what you're making. Happy New Year, friends. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!